Hello everyone, it's Sally here. I decided that to start my channel, maybe I would just give you a sneak peek of some of the journal pages that I've done. I started journaling in May and started with altered books. So this little book here was originally an old textbook, a handwriting book, textbook. So it had a paper cover. I reinforced it as best that I could. It was really kind of falling apart, but I thought it was a good little book to start with. So in this first altered book, I started with a 2-page spread, and I kind of decided that I liked working like that. So you'll see that most of my journaling, I do 2-page spreads. But I used some collage, a lot of paint, and stencils and stamping, book pages. In this one I did add some gold. I'm not much of a glittery, shiny girl, but when I use dark colors like dark browns, blacks, I do like to add a little bit of gold once in a while. I think it really makes the pages pop. This one I was just in a do your own thing kind of mood, I guess. So that's kind of a theme for this page. Sing your own song, do you, go your own way. I like this little drummer boy silhouette, so I wrote just bang on my drum all day. That's from an old song. If you don't know it, look it up. Todd Rundgren. This one just kind of went its own way. I started out, I think, with kind of a celestial thing in my head, but it went the way it wanted to, so I just wrote Embrace the Chaos because it's just kind of a chaotic looking page. And here, this was intended as a background, and I never came back to it to put anything on top of it, so it's kind of pretty but rather boring. I'm showing you this one because I felt it was too bright. So I just put a wash of gray over the whole thing to try and tone it down, and it got a little muddy for my taste. I kind of like the subdued look, but it's still a little muddy. But anyways, and I wrote, don't be afraid to get muddy on it. So yeah, so anyways, that little book has a lot of other pages in it that I won't bore you with. This one is the second book that I started. It was an old book called Farm Ballads, and it was full of stories and poetry and things from the early 1900s. This cover that I put on here, she was a printout from Unsplash that I cut out and pasted her on, and then I painted over her and painted the background. This was a free online lesson by Newport, and she used the same image and gave the location of Unsplash where you could go and download the image. So I had done that and decided that would look good as the cover, so that's on there. Let me make sure I'm in frame here. So I drew a margarita glass. That just came to me because I had done this background and it just seemed really summery. It was in June, so it was summery. And I wrote, according to chemistry, alcohol is a solution, which is true. And I had Zentangled some little square black cards a few years ago, and those were stuck in with a bunch of my old papers. So I cut those up and put them on. More mark making. This one again was an intuitive piece that I started with this picture. I really like the colors in the picture and kind of went from there and chose my colors, and I drew a little guy's face over here. I don't know why, and embellished that one. This one I really like. This was totally intuitive, and as I got partway through this figure kind of emerged So I went with it and developed it a little bit more, and then put a saying or journaling over there. So I like that one. This one says, sky's the limit, there's still time. Sometimes I feel like as I'm getting older, there's not enough, I don't have enough time left to be able to do everything I want to do in life. But then, you know, I'm having new twin grandkids in the spring, so I need to change my mind and decide, yeah, I have time. So anyways, but that's how I was feeling that day. Just had the clock on there, a couple of clocks. So this old ad for a bicycles really drew me in. I liked the colors, I liked the graphic nature of it, the Art Nouveau feel of the lady. So I started with her and then just kind of created the background and so forth based on her and on the colors that were in the graphic. This one, these two front images were punched with a paper punch, and I embellished them. They became flowers, so I thought, well, I need to do the same thing and put one in front of the other. So these two are drawn directly on the page, and these are pasted on, glued on, and then I just wrote keep growing. This one started out just kind of gray, brownish gray and green, and then I added the gold, and then I just started doodling and embellishing and put a couple of quotes on there and synonyms for how I was feeling that day. I love Banksy. I don't know if y'all know of Banksy. You probably do. Especially after his stunt at Sotheby's this week with shredding his painting that sold. But I've always liked this Banksy image of the little girl who's getting rained on under her umbrella, and there's no rain outside of it. So I started with that, and then I found some word text, book text that kind of went along with the image. I saw her online, and just it made me feel like I needed to use her. If you can see it, it says, "Don't grow up too fast, darling. Age is inevitable, but if you nurture a childlike heart, you'll never ever grow old." And so I used some burlap and wrote "Find your inner child," and I think this was part of a napkin up here, and then again stenciling and stamping and mark making. I love this. You will never speak to anyone more than you speak to yourself in your head. Be kind to yourself. So I kind of started with that, and then the rest kind of fell into place, and she's saying talk, 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 blah, blah, blah. This was for a challenge, I think, on one of the Facebook art journaling pages. It was to create an art journal spread based on a fairy tale. I don't know what this fairy tale was, but I found her in a book. And these two little guys were actually full-figured, clothed, standing off somewhere. So I just cut their heads out and made them the flowers. This is a Donna Downey stencil, a rose stencil that I just love. I love the graphic appeal of it. And so I did the background, stenciled the roses, and then I drenched, oh, and then that came off. I put cheesecloth over the top of it. And I like the way that looks, the raggedy look of the cheesecloth on top. This poem was in this original book, was originally in this book, and it talks about, I think it's probably post World War II based on the time frame of the publication of the book. So, and I had these old pictures, so it all kind of just went together. But it talks about different women in a parade representing different states of the United States, and I think they were celebrating the ratification of the women's right to vote, but it's a cute poem. This is another Donna Downey stencil that I absolutely love, and I found this again on Unsplash. It's a great place to find images, copyright-free images that you can use in your art. So if you haven't visited, or if you are looking for copyright-free art to use for collage, it's a good resource. But her coloring just kind of matched in with the background that I put behind the Donna Downey stencil. And then I stamped this over here and stuck that on there. But I like this a lot. I think I'm using it as the header on my YouTube channel. And then this is the end of this book. So I put the end isn't the end, just a new beginning. So this one was from June to August. This one, the smaller one, was May to June. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at what I've done up till now. I am currently working in a large delusions journal, and I'm really liking the large pages. So I will share that another time. What I will show you before I go, though, is I made this little journal just out of extra pages and papers. I had a lot of end papers that you know, just partial sheets. So this I had made on a jelly plate. The paper was made on a jelly plate, and then I covered it with packing tape. So I used that because it's pretty sturdy for a cover. This was another jelly print. Used that for the back because it was on a heavier cardstock. And then just, I haven't really done, I just did her in here. Put a jelly paper over top of another piece that had been embossed, and then drew her on top and just allowed the color of the background to fill in her hair and to kind of show through. You can see it all over my hands, all to show through from behind her face, which I kind of like that. So that we just started that today. I just started that today. And I had this little brad with my initial on it, so I just stuck that on the top to hold that closed. So that's what I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.